everybody. Dan Illman, Fort Erie racing analyst Ashley Mailloux with the DRF race of the day for Tuesday, September the 12th. It's the second jewel of Canada's Triple Crown, and it's at Fort Erie, the prestigious Prince of Wales. Let's take a look at this field. We're going 1 mile and 3/16 for 3-year-olds. Please scan or click the QR code for race of the day access on mobile, which includes free Formulator Pass performances. And Ashley, of course, Canada's Triple Crown is unique because you have 3 races and each is contested over different surfaces. The King's Plate over Tapeta, the Prince of Wales on dirt, the Breeders' Stakes on turf. So you have to have versatility, obviously, to sweep these this Triple Crown series. And you might want to forgive some horses that might not have run great on the Tapeta and the King's Plate coming back on dirt here.
Absolutely. I mean, this series, obviously, the distances are the same as the American Triple Crown, but you mentioned the surfaces are different, as well as the timing in between the races, not the standard thing that we see in the United States. But this field this year for the Prince of Wales, this is a really big field of 12 expected to go. I think it makes it a very interesting race to handicap. And looking at this race, as you mentioned, horses may take to the dirt. They may not take to it. Maybe they had excuses last time out. The King's Plate this year was such a big field in terms of the number of horses in the gate with 17 that I think some horses maybe had compromised trips because of it. So really excited to see these horses square off. And Paramount Prince, the morning line favorite, obviously has speed, which should help him on the dirt. And nice to see him trying to sweep the Triple Crown.
And we'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. You mentioned Paramount Prince's early speed. He took the King's Plate in gate-to-wire fashion, and he's going to try that tactic again, I would assume, with a clean break. We'll see what the maiden Ottawa gives us. In only his 3rd lifetime start, he showed good speed second time out over the Tapeta.
And he was second behind Touch and Ride, who I thought in terms of trip didn't get a perfect trip in the King's Plate, but overall raced pretty well and is a horse that a lot of people liked in that spot. And, you know, Paramount Prince, I think what he was able to show at the 1.25 miles last time out, and as we've mentioned on the dirt, he should be forwardly placed. But if there's some pressure in here, the pace could be on the quicker side.
And if the pace is fast, as Timeform US expects, keep an eye on the number 4, Stanley House. Note the LP flag over his chiclet. That indicates he has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, one of 4 horses in the Prince of Wales getting blinkers on. Let's take a look at the number 1, Armaline. And this is a horse who looked really good off the layoff last time out. Now, he got class relief. They dropped him in for a tag. They switched him to turf. But he was very professional winning that race off of a lengthy layoff. Now he takes a shot on a completely different surface while stepping way up in class.
Yeah, and you can see the connections just picked him up out of that race 425. So they're going guns a-blazing, and it doesn't shock me. I think Bruno Schickendanz always likes to have horses in the big races, and he's willing to take those shots. And certainly stepped up, though, second time out from what we saw in debut. Probably a large part of that, though, was maybe maturing from 2 to 3. Also, you know, trying a different surface. But once again, now it's the 3rd career start, the 2nd of that 3-year-old campaign in a new surface. You're throwing a lot at this horse all at once.
The number 2, Mustaches, is one of only 3 horses in this race with prior dirt experience. And he ran really well in his one and only dirt try down at Gulfstream Park. He finished 2nd in a starter optional claiming race. He has a strong dirt pedigree. His brother, Stachys, earned over $600,000 on the main track. So maybe in the plate, it just didn't work out for him, stretching way out off the claim.
Maybe not. And also mentioning that race at Gulfstream, having dirt experience has never been a bad thing going into the Prince of Wales. When I go back even just a couple of years ago, Steve Asmussen sent Tonebroke up for the race and already had that sort of edge having races under his belt on the dirt. And for him, in his case, if you're going to try to make a case for him, at least it was his career best effort in terms of a figure. But again, another horse here who was claimed 2 starts back, maybe didn't want to go 1.25 miles, still going to go pretty long, though, at 1 mile and 3/16.
The number 3 is Twin City. He's one of those horses getting blinkers on for the first time. He was a stakes winner sprinting in his seasonal debut, the King Corey, and 2 starts back, he ran quite well in the plate trial. Let's watch that effort. He finishes 3rd, but as you see here, he's sort of over in behind horses turning into the stretch, and he's going to make a decent run to finish 3rd. And now, again, he didn't fire his best shot in the plate. He was 8th that day, but this is a course that's shown a little bit of ability. Are you somewhat concerned about this distance, or did this race make you believe he can get the trip?
I think he can still get the trip, and I think it's not even just this performance. I thought it was a good performance considering the trip that he got, but it's going back to what we saw from him last year. I know he's got a lot of seconds in his 2-year-old campaign, but he seemed like with each start, actually, he was handling that stretch out in distance pretty well. I wonder if in the plate, in terms of where he was drawn, it was a big field. He was drawn a little bit more to the inside, and he was pretty close to it, just a couple of lengths. And when you look at Paramount Prince, obviously he was able to sweep it on the front end, but other horses that were making a late run, they were coming from further off of it than Twin City was. So, I think trip's going to come down to everything for every horse in this race, especially the way that the dirt plays. When you look, like I said, historically at the race, you don't want to be too far off of it, especially when you have a big field like this.
Kings Plate third place finisher, the number 4 Stanley House, is coming into this race in exceptional form. Let's watch his race 3 starts back. This is a mile and a 16th race at Woodbine. It's a first level allowance, and you see Stanley House just staying on strongly, and distance isn't going to be an issue for this horse. I thought he had a pretty good trip in the plate. He did have to break from the inside post, but he was able to drop inside, turning into the stretch, eased out in the lane, and finished up well. Looks like he's going the right way.
I think he is going the right way, and just looking at his progression, he has picked it up. I thought he really looked nice in the King's Plate. And at that point, when you're looking at the stretch run, I did think he was trying to make an impact. He wasn't tossing it in and was still trying. And from a pedigree perspective, I think he'll be fine on the dirt. I do like the addition of blinkers for him. Going down the page, there have been some races. I know it was going shorter at a mile and a 16th, but he was pretty close to it early on. Not the same thing that we've seen in his last 2. And I'm wondering if the blinkers, for the first time ever in his career, that's going to be able to put him into a better position.
Trinity Park is up next, and he's taken a big step up in class. He's been dangled for a tag in his last 3 starts. He's eligible for a non-winners of 2 life. He finished behind a pretty solid horse last time out. That third place finisher came back to win on turf with a 73 Beyer speed figure. That being said, new surface and a giant hike in class.
Another runner in here for the owner, and this one was supplemented into this race back on Thursday when they drew it. I think looking at his races, he's below the others in here, just a notch below. He would really need to step up, and his dirt work on the training track at Woodbine, it's fine. I think it's a good work for 5 furlongs, and maybe the surface will help him, but still, he hasn't really faced the caliber that others have, and he hasn't really faced any of these horses yet.
The 6 is Coco Kaipu, who won the Queenston 3 starts back, going 7/8 of a mile. Then ran quite well in the open Grade 3 Marine, going a mile and a 16th. He finishes second in this race, made a big sweeping move to take command, but you can see he's just a little bit green. He's sort of drifting in once he makes the lead. He's kind of looking outwards. He's on his left lead. He's learning. He has some ability in the plate. Maybe just a wide trip hurt him.
It's great that you point out that he's learning, because I actually spoke to Ted Holder before the plate about this horse. And when you look at his past performances, if you just looked at him, you'd say, he looked like last year he had some distance limitations, right? And now he's been all right. Obviously, didn't fire a race at all in the King's Plate, but he talked about this horse had kind of a poor debut, and maybe that took something out of his mindset, and it's been a mental game with him. And I still think, as you said, he is learning. The Marine, though, I thought it was a really good performance. He just got beat in the end, and he had that huge work before the plate. He's also now been at Fort Erie for about a week, and they worked him. And that's a fast work, 46-1. That's blazing. And I like that also he's been there, right? He's been acquainted with the new surroundings. So we'll see what he's able to do in terms of trip. I think he has the right running style, at least. Maybe the distance, again, will get the best of him, but I do think he's going to be quite close to it.
The 7 is Stay on Her Good Side. And while this horse has only won once in his career, he has run some nice races against top company. He's a very dependable horse in stakes competition, and he just missed last time out when they dropped him in to a little optional claiming race. But he showed in that start that he's still in good form. I would never want to count this horse out, because he does have those quality company lines on his page.
And the winner was Midnight in Malibu, who we saw make an appearance in the King's Plate. And you look at the trip that he got. He was dead last. I know it wasn't a strung out field, but I still think he raced well overall. And I think the big thing is Mark Cassie's been very supportive of supporting all 3 races of the Canadian Triple Crown, but he's got the morning line favorite in here, and he's also going to put this one in here for DJ Stable.
Here's Paramount Prince, your morning line favorite, your King's Plate winner, and he has just blossomed in a short amount of time. He came into the plate trial as a maiden. He wired that field, and here in the King's Plate, he got a brilliant ride from Patrick Husbands. He cleared to the lead. He got a little bit of a breather, and he is just doggedly game in the stretch. It appears that this extra distance, stretching him out around 2 turns, has made all the difference.
It has, and the big thing was when he got to the front, as you mentioned, he was able to kind of catch his lungs and get that breath, right, that breather that he needed. And to see him then in the stretch kick on the way that he did, I thought was visually very impressive. That's usually when horses, even if they're on the front end, they're tiring, they have to be gritty, but he ended up being just stellar in that race. And, you know, it was kind of a little bit of a question mark knowing that when you looked at the race for the plate trial wasn't very fast. He did go a bit faster and he was going longer, but he was able to prevail. So knowing he's got speed on the dirt, you know, he's the morning line favorite. He deserves it. And now with the dirt, that should not be an issue.
The 9 Tiburon is lightly raced with a ton of upside potential. He won his second lifetime start when stretching out for the first time. I thought he looked pretty good doing it. Then he was wired by Paramount Prince in the plate trial. I like that they skipped the plate with this horse, and now they've given him plenty of time. He has a local breeze at Fort Erie, and being by good magic, you'd have to think that the dirt's going to be fine for him.
Yeah, I think he's very intriguing on the dirt, especially at the right price, right? It's always about the odds. I think he can offer value. He has raced with blinkers before. It was on debut. I'm not really going to read into that too much. I think that's going to be an interesting equipment change. You mentioned the local work. Kevin Attard sent both of his horses there down together. He did have the quicker work of the two. Take that however you'd like. I'm very intrigued by him, just knowing that we really haven't seen him much.
The 10 Velocitor is very interesting to me because he's another horse with a dirt pedigree. He's by More Spirit out of a dam that was a multiple stakes winner on the surface down at Canterbury Park. And this horse showed his ability to get 1 1/8 last year at 2. He was one of the better 2-year-olds in Canada when he won the Coronation Futurity. Now, his last race, the King's Plate, I thought was pretty good. He easily outran his odds at 71-1. He was chasing Paramount Prince throughout, and he really didn't quit in the stretch.
Yeah, and, you know, Kevin Attard had a stacked field in the King's Plate. I actually remember talking to him after the race. He seemed pretty impressed with what he saw and was happy that he was able to fire a really big race. To finish 4th was certainly respectable, and it was a nice buyer for him. It was an 81, which was certainly a big step up. And I'm, you know, curious, you know, when you had that many in that race and he's decided to send 2, I think there's a lot of things that Kevin must be thinking that this horse is going to handle the dirt. And I like that they both worked there. He had the slower of the 2 works, but still going with the Prince of Wales trip. I think that says a lot about his chances.
Ottawa is the number 11. Josie Carroll's such a good trainer, and she won this race last year. She's an excellent judge of talent. The fact that Ottawa's in here as a 3rd start maiden, I think, is a real endorsement of her feelings about his ability. Ran much better last time out, finishing 2nd. In this race, was on the lead, tried to really stretch out this field at about the 5/16 pole, making the lead. Seemed a little bit green, got out a little bit on the 2nd turn, very late to change leads, and then couldn't finish with the winner, who I think is a pretty nice horse. The 3rd place horse came back to be stakes placed with an 83 buyer. There's some ability here with Ottawa.
I think so, and I think he can just get better with each and every start, as you mentioned, a very limited racing career so far. And I also agree with Touch and Ride. I think Touch and Ride is a horse to watch going forward. He raced very well in that race, and then he ended up being, I believe, 5th in the King's Plate, or somewhere around there in terms of placings. I don't think he had a perfect trip. So this is an intriguing horse. And again, knowing that he was on the front end last time out, but even 2 starts back, he was forwardly placed. I'm curious to see what the tactics will be, obviously, as post 11 with the configuration. He's got a lot of time to get a good position. I think he should be pretty close to it as well.
Cool Kiss, like his uncoupled stablemate Stanley House, will be getting blinkers for the first time, perhaps to infuse a little bit more speed. But this horse ran really well on dirt at Gulfstream Park. We're going to take a look at that race where he was 2nd, going 7/8 of a mile. He is a true closer. He's the kind of horse that needs a little bit of a setup. He should get the right pace flow at Fort Erie on Tuesday, and he's running on at the end of this race. It showed at least that he could handle dirt.
I think that is huge. It's a reason I really do like him in the spot. Whether he can win based on his running style, I don't know if the equipment change is enough. We've talked about that the pace should be decent early on, but that doesn't mean that the pace can't hold, and that's my concern with him. But he's got a nice training track workout up at Woodbine. I thought he raced well in the plate trial, considering what Paramount Prince was able to do in front-end fashion. This was the horse that was rallying from far back. Very intrigued by him. I think another thing I'm curious as is to his odds. I wonder if he's going to take respect, knowing that he has a pretty good dirt race under his belt, or if people are going to back off on him, just knowing that he typically has a lot of work to do late.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Prince of Wales. It's the second jewel of Canada's Triple Crown. Ashley, you're going with Paramount Prince. So am I. I just have a feeling with his running style, he is going to appreciate dirt. He likes to hear his feet rattle. Distance is good for him. He just beat 6 of these in the plate.
That's what I think it really boils down to, right? And if we go back to last year's edition, Duke of Love wins, was tracking, just kind of pressing the pace over Ironstone. Speed held well. It was an off track. I think that's going to be a big thing to consider. There is rain in the forecast for tomorrow. And I do think in terms of front runners, that probably helps them being the off track, right? Especially runners like Paramount Prince, but doesn't mean horses are able to handle the dirt to begin with. And now if there's mud and they're getting hit with mud, changes things up. So I think you want to be close to it. I tried to look at others in here, Dan, and there's a couple that I'm intrigued by. Really, the 4 and the 12. I think they have maybe some upset chances in here, but we're in the same boat. Paramount Prince.
We're both going with the 8-4 exact. I'm a little interested in Velociter to see what he does on dirt with that pedigree and a decent performance last time out in the play. 8-4, 12-9 for Ashley, 8-4, 10 and 11 for me. Enjoy the Prince of Wales. It's Tuesday's DRF Race of the Day. Good luck.